So we'll pick up where we left off in the first video. We've got these nice walnut panels milled up. We just need to cut those to size at the Fusion F2. The legs are all ready for the panels, but we have some more details to take care of on those panels. So after we cut them to size, we'll leave them a little extra wide for now, and then we'll get into the process of cutting those long grooves through the full height of the panels, and then on to routing the backside for that pass-through detail. Had a saw with a true riving knife, this is a real great feature to have. It's a wonderful safety feature, and I find that 99% of all cuts I make with a single blade, I'll have that riving knife in place. Just use an offcut from your walnut panel to set the blade height, and we'll make those cross cuts on the X-cut sled. We need to switch over to a dado blade to make grooves in the side panels. That's one of the rare times we won't use a riving knife. Sometimes you might not use the arbor washer, but since it's just a 1/2 inch stack, we'll go ahead and make use of it. Okay, so this is the tricky part. We're going to create a series of grooves on the show side. This is of course face down in this orientation, show side down. We're going to create that series of grooves with the dado blade. Each slot will be 1/2 inch wide, and the spacing between the grooves is also 1/2 inch wide. So make yourself a little layout. Key point here is that the first groove starts 1 inch from the edge of the panel. So you can make use of accessories like magnetic feather boards if you like, and we'll go ahead and make that first cut. Always keep the same reference edge against the table saw fence, and make these cuts on both panels at the same time. That way when you're finished with your grooves, the spacing between the cuts will be identical. Here we go with the same cut on the second panel. And then we'll just slide the fence over for that second cut. Instead of using the scale on the fence, we'll just align the blade with our marks, and we're all set. Wow, that was a lot of grooves to cut at the table saw. Hey, put in the comment section below if you have a different way that you would cut these through grooves in the side panels. Do you have a CNC machine and you would do it that way? Or do you have an idea for some sort of an indexing jig similar to a box joint jig that would help you space these panels without manual measurements? So doing it the old school way on the table saw seemed to work pretty good, and it didn't even really take that long, but drop me a note in the comment section if you have alternate ideas. Well, there's an old rule in woodworking that whatever you do to one face of a panel, you should do that to the opposite side as well. For example, if you were to plane a panel, you'd plane one face, flip it over, plane the other side, and work it down symmetrically like that. In this case, because of the design, we couldn't do that. We only cut the through grooves on one face, and because of that, you can wind up with a little bit of cupping to the panel. If that becomes an issue for you, just clamp the panels back to back and leave them there overnight. Should help to iron things out a little bit. Ultimately, once this becomes a stereo rack, it'll straighten up against the shelves and it'll have plenty of strength. Okay, now we're going to use a router to open up the back side of this panel in 2 spots and just a little light through. It is advisable to use an oversized base plate on your router, and that's just so there's no possibility that as you're routing, you might tip into the opening if it's a little too wide for your router base. So this just gives us some extra stability as we make that gap and kind of route out this whole opening to about a 1/2 inch deep. So we just started to make a first pass around the opening. We'll make this in multiple passes, never more than a 1/4 inch of depth removed per pass. And as we get down just beyond a 1/2 inch depth, we'll start seeing these openings from the grooves we cut on the other side. So here we've made our first pass. We have removed a little bit of depth from the walnut. The template is just made from MDF and it's just screwed together on the underside with pocket holes. So we're not deep enough to pass through to the grooves, so we'll just continue with light passes until we start seeing those openings from the other side. Okay, so on that last pass, we just started to break through, so I know I'm at a good depth. I think I'll just slightly adjust my depth stop, get a little bit deeper, and we'll go ahead and make one final pass to remove all this waste. And a little more testing with that new depth, and I think we've got it. The more we work, the more we expose, and you can see kind of the grid-like pattern that we're going to establish once the routing is all done. Okay, double check that we routed everything, and that looks really good. Little look at our template. Quick and easy pocket holes. Makes a nice jig. Yeah, it's an interesting design. It gives it kind of a louvered effect. Definitely mid-century modern vibe, but I like the direction this is going. While the side panels of this project are certainly the highlight, there's also an interesting detail we're going to create on the legs. We have these thick legs for the stereo rack, and they're going to receive a tapered element. Narrower at the top and wider at the bottom. We've made our layout lines, so we'll head over to the 1412 bandsaw and make those cuts. Okay, that should about do it for part 2 in this series. We've taken care of the side panels, which again have that really interesting pass-through detail, as well as the long grooves that give it kind of that fluted or louvered look. That's the highlight of this project. We also have the nice taper legs completed. Now, when it comes time to glue the legs to the side panel in part 3, remember to keep these tapered offcuts from your legs. They make really useful clamping calls for that process. Stay tuned for part 3.